this dear this new video.
How can I stay focused on my career goals? I used to think the road to achieving my career goals would be a straight path, clear, with milestones to hit, easy to follow. But as I stand here today, looking at the progress I've made, I've come to realize that staying focused on my career goals is far more complicated than I had imagined. It's not just about working hard. It's about maintaining consistency, handling distractions, and finding motivation even when the journey feels uncertain. At the beginning of my career, I was full of ambition and excitement. I had a clear picture of what I wanted to achieve. My goals were set: find a job in my field, get promoted, gain recognition for my contributions, and eventually make a difference in the industry I was passionate about. But somewhere along the way, things got complicated. As the days turned into months, and the months into years, I found myself struggling to stay focused. It wasn't that I didn't care about my career goals. It was the opposite, actually. I cared so much that the weight of those aspirations started to feel overwhelming. Every time I looked at my goals, I saw an impossible mountain to climb. How could I stay focused on something so massive? It wasn't just about taking steps every day anymore. I had to juggle multiple tasks, unexpected setbacks, and the constant pressure of the fast-paced world I was working in. The burden of overwhelm. When I started in my current job, everything felt new and exciting. I felt like I was on the right path. But as the demands grew, I began to feel the pressure. I was working hard, and yet it felt like the results weren't coming fast enough. I kept telling myself that everything would eventually fall into place, that I was just in a tough phase of my career. But with every passing day, it became harder to stay focused. I became increasingly distracted by deadlines, office politics, and the overwhelming volume of tasks I had to handle. I remember a particular day when I had a huge project deadline looming, but I found myself staring at my computer screen for over an hour, unable to focus. I kept thinking about the bigger picture, the promotions I wanted, the recognition I craved, the leadership roles I envisioned for myself. But I couldn't focus on the tasks that would get me there. Every time I thought about my goals, they felt too distant, too large to reach. That's when I realized something crucial. I had been treating my career goals like distant dreams, instead of focusing on small, manageable steps. It was easy to get caught up in the excitement of what I wanted for the future, but that excitement was clouding my ability to make meaningful progress in the present. Breaking down the big goals. One of the most important lessons I learned was that staying focused on your career goals isn't about obsessing over the end result. Instead, it's about breaking those big goals down into smaller, achievable tasks. I began to take a hard look at my long-term career goals and ask myself, what can I do today to get closer to them? I realized that the path to promotion or recognition wasn't going to happen overnight. Instead of looking at the whole mountain, I had to start thinking about the individual steps it would take to get to the top. So, I began to break my goals down into quarterly, monthly, and weekly objectives. For example, instead of aiming for a promotion at the end of the year, I set a goal to complete one key project each month that would demonstrate my ability to lead and deliver results. Rather than fixating on an abstract goal like become a leader, I focused on improving specific skills like public speaking and project management that would make me a strong candidate when the time came. It wasn't easy at first. My mind kept drifting back to the bigger picture, to the prize I was working towards. But I had to remind myself that focusing on the small tasks, no matter how tedious, was the only way to build momentum. Each task I completed brought me one step closer to where I wanted to be. Eliminating distractions. As I started to break down my goals into manageable chunks, I also realized that I needed to eliminate distractions. My job was demanding, and the office environment was constantly filled with interruptions. From the endless stream of emails to the chatter around the office, staying focused was a daily challenge. I realized that, in order to stay focused on my goals, I needed to take control of my environment. I began setting clear boundaries for myself. No emails for the first hour of my workday, no meetings without a clear agenda, and no social media during office hours. It wasn't about being rigid or inflexible, but about creating time blocks where I could work on my goals without distractions. I also started using productivity techniques like the Pomodoro technique, where I would work in focused bursts of 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break. This helped me stay on track, knowing that there was a built-in rest period after each intense work session. The short bursts of focus allowed me to give my best effort to each task, instead of feeling like I was working nonstop and burning myself out. Staying accountable. One of the best decisions I made was to find an accountability partner. At first, I was hesitant. I thought that working alone would help me stay focused, but I soon realized that sharing my goals with someone else would hold me more accountable. I didn't want to let that person down, and having someone to check in with kept me motivated. My accountability partner wasn't someone in my immediate work circle. Instead, I reached out to a mentor I had met a few years earlier at a networking event. She had been in the industry longer than I had, and she had seen firsthand what it took to succeed. Every week, we would check in and discuss the progress I had made towards my goals. She would offer advice, encouragement, and constructive feedback. At first, the meetings felt like a chore. I would struggle to find things to say about my progress. But as time went on, I began to realize the value in having someone who genuinely cared about my success. Her encouragement and guidance kept me on track when things got tough. And the act of reporting my progress to someone else pushed me to keep going, even when I didn't feel like it. One of the biggest challenges I encountered on my journey to stay focused on my career goals was maintaining a positive attitude. There were times when setbacks felt inevitable, projects didn't go as planned, deadlines were missed, and progress seemed slower than expected. During these tough moments, it was easy to fall into a negative mindset and question whether I was on the right path at all. The pressure to keep moving forward and to keep achieving was constant. I felt like I couldn't afford to take a break, to acknowledge the challenges, or to even give myself credit for the progress I'd already made. The fear of failure was always lurking, and there were days when I felt paralyzed by self-doubt. But slowly, I began to understand that staying focused on my career goals wasn't just about relentlessly pushing forward. It was also about giving myself the space to reset. Self-compassion became a crucial part of my strategy. Instead of beating myself up over mistakes or setbacks, I started to reframe them as learning opportunities. I began taking moments to celebrate the small victories, whether it was finishing a difficult task or overcoming a particularly challenging situation. These small wins kept me motivated and reminded me that progress was happening, even if it wasn't always visible. I also worked on changing my mindset. Instead of thinking, I have to stay focused, I started to ask myself, what can I learn from this situation? Or how can I use this experience to grow? I found that when I approached challenges with curiosity and a desire to learn, I was better able to stay focused on my long-term goals, rather than getting caught up in frustration over short-term obstacles. One of the most powerful techniques I used to stay motivated was visualization. I spent time each week imagining where I wanted to be in the next few years. I visualized myself achieving the career milestones I had set, whether it was leading a successful project, receiving recognition from my peers, or securing a new opportunity. This mental practice helped me maintain a clear sense of purpose, especially when I encountered setbacks. Mastering time management. Another area I had to focus on was time management. I quickly realized that achieving my career goals wasn't just about working harder. It was about working smarter. Managing my time effectively became key to staying on track. I started using a variety of productivity tools to organize my work. I kept a detailed calendar, set reminders for deadlines, and broke larger tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks. Every day, I made sure to prioritize the most important tasks, the ones that aligned with my career goals, while delegating or postponing less critical activities. This approach helped me stay organized and reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed by an endless to-do list. In addition, I became more intentional about saying no. There were always requests for my time, meetings, projects, social events, but I realized that in order to stay focused on my long-term goals, I couldn't say yes to everything. I had to make sure that the tasks I committed to were aligned with the progress I wanted to make. Saying no wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I learned to respect my time and guard it fiercely. I also set clear boundaries between my personal and professional life. Work-life balance became an important part of my strategy for staying focused. I knew that if I didn't take time to recharge and focus on my well-being, I wouldn't be able to bring my best self to my career. I made sure to disconnect from work after hours, to spend time with friends and family, and to engage in hobbies that brought me joy. These moments of rest helped me return to my work with renewed focus and energy. Adapting to change. Staying focused on career goals isn't a static process. it requires adaptability. As much as I tried to plan ahead, life had a way of throwing curveballs. Companies change, industries evolve, and sometimes unexpected opportunities arise that shift the course of your career. If you stay too rigid in your approach, you might miss out on something that could ultimately help you achieve your goals. I learned to remain open to change and to embrace new opportunities that aligned with my values and long-term objectives. Sometimes, that meant stepping out of my comfort zone and taking risks. Other times, it meant adjusting my goals in response to new information or circumstances. I remember a period when I was offered an opportunity to work on a project that was completely outside of my original job description. It wasn't a path I had anticipated, but it was a chance to gain valuable experience and demonstrate my versatility. At first, I hesitated. The project was risky, and it would take me out of my comfort zone. But I realized that embracing this challenge could help me learn new skills and ultimately bring me closer to my goals. I accepted the offer, and in the end, the experience proved to be invaluable. I learned skills I never would have otherwise and expanded my network in ways I hadn't expected. Building a support system. Throughout this journey, I also learned the importance of building a support system. Staying focused on your career goals can be lonely at times, and having people around you who believe in your vision can make all the difference. I reached out to colleagues, mentors, and friends who supported my growth and offered advice when needed. I didn't hesitate to ask for help or feedback, and I made sure to surround myself with people who pushed me to be better. Networking played an important role as well. I realized that success in any field isn't just about individual performance, it's about relationships. The more I connected with like-minded professionals and industry leaders, the more opportunities opened up for me. These connections not only helped me grow professionally, but also kept me motivated when I felt like giving up. Seeing others who had achieved similar goals showed me that it was possible and reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey.